Top stories in our news. The Higher Education Authority, HEA, has deregistered 3 universities from operating in the country for abrogating the Higher Education Act. And a 19-year-old cyclist of Mpika district in Mchinga province has died on the spot after he was hit by a speeding Jordan Motors bus. Welcome to the news. The Higher Education Authority, HEA, has deregistered 3 universities from operating as higher education institutions in the country for abrogating the Higher Education Act. The deregistered universities are Citizen University, Pamosi University, and University of East and Southern Africa. HEA Corporate Communications Officer Boniface Musoba says following the notice of deregistration, the 3 institutions are not to operate in Zambia as provided for in Higher Education Act No. 4 of 2013. Ms. Musoba says the institutions have 7 days to surrender the original certificates of registration or risk being liable upon conviction to a fine or to imprisonment for a period not exceeding 2 years or both. He has told journalists at a media briefing in Lusaka that the deregistered universities have been gazetted in Gazette Notice No. 27 of 2020, which was published on Friday, 10th January 2020.
Following audits on these institutions, the institutions were, on the dates noted and for the reasons cited below, deregistered with the authority. Number 1. Citizen University was deregistered on 20th December 2019 because the institution abrogated the Higher Education Act No. 4 of 2013, Part 4, Section 23, 1B, which mandates the authority to deregister a private higher education institution if the private higher education institution contravenes any term or condition of the Certificate of Registration or any provision of the Higher Education Act. Number 2. Pamosi University was deregistered on 20th December 2019 because the institution abrogated the Higher Education Act No. 4 of 2013, Part 4, Section 23(3), which mandates the authority to order the closure of a private higher education institution where its proprietor fails to take the remedial measures determined by the authority under paragraphs A of subsection 2 of the Higher Education Act. Number 3, the University of East and Southern Africa was deregistered on 26 December 2019 because the institution had been closed for a period exceeding 6 months in accordance with the provision of the Higher Education Act No. 4 of 2013, Part 4, Section 23, 1E.
A 19-year-old cyclist of Mpika district in Mchinga province has died on the spot after he was hit by a speeding Jordan Motors services bus. Mchinga Province Police Commissioner John Jase was confirmed the incident to Zanis in Mpika has identified the deceased as Kennedy Mlenga of Katumpa village in Chief Chikwanda's area. Mr. Jase says the accident occurred on Monday around 13:50 hours at Mutale village along the Great North Road about 35 kilometers south of Mpika town. He says the Jordan bus that hit cyclist was a Scania with registration number BAB 2048 and was being driven by Elias Skazwe, 51, of Chunga Township in Lusaka. Ms. Njase narrates that the deceased was coming from the southern direction heading towards the north when he was hit by the bus, which was also coming from the same direction. He says that this happened as he was trying to cross the road. The Provincial Police Commissioner states that the deceased sustained multiple fractures before his death. He says his body has been deposited at Mpika Hospital mortuary, awaiting post-mortem, while the driver of the bus has been arrested and charged with causing death by dangerous driving. The government has disclosed that it will this year upgrade 26 primary schools to secondary schools in Lusaka to enhance access to quality education. General Education Minister David Mabumba says the upgrading of primary schools is also meant to reduce the distance learners cover to access secondary education. Mr. Mabumba says the schools that will be upgraded will be given additional supporting infrastructure. Speaking at a media briefing held in Lusaka, Mr. Mabumba acknowledged that the upgrading of the said schools is an indication that President Edgar Lungu values the importance of education. Mr. Mabumba notes that since it came into power in 2011, Patriotic Front government has added about 400 secondary schools to the 635 secondary schools it found in 2011. He says there are now 1,000 secondary schools in the country. And Mr. Mavumba has maintained that the user fees for secondary schools in the country remains at 200 kwacha per term with no additional requirements.
For the grant-aided schools, PS Kalumba and his team looked at the submissions from the grant-aided schools. They may not agree with us, but when you look at the Education Act for 2011, it only gives the Minister of General Education, myself here, the power to provide regulatory framework under which grant-aided schools, public schools are going to charge fees. The only exception is the private school, but the private schools, when we do the new Act Director Planning, make sure that the framework covers everybody. So PS Kalumba has written to the Secretariat for the Catholic in terms of the new user fees. I don't have them here, but we have written to them, and those fees that he wrote, he was not using his authority. That authority and the letter he wrote has got my blessing. So they should not antagonize him as if he was doing those things on his own, because there was a team which was constituted here in the ministry to look at the submission from our colleagues, and I hope our colleagues from the granted schools in the Catholic schools, they will be able to adhere to what we have advised them. If they have got challenges, we are not here to demean them. They remain a key stakeholder, but if they have got challenges, the children who are accessing schooling in the grant-aided schools, they are also Zambian children. When I was at St. Mary's in Kawambwa there, the children didn't even want to listen to me.
President Edgar Lungu has been called upon to pardon prisoners who were recently involved in a road traffic accident in which one of them died on the spot in Mpongwe. Advocacy Against Child Abuse and Gender-Based Violence Executive Director Belion Chola, who has made the appeal, is saddened 41 inmates were being ferried in a small van when the accident happened. Mr. Chola says such treatment of inmates is an abuse of human rights. He states that this is why he feels that supervisors or survivors of the accident should be pardoned as consolation on what they went through.
It's so saddening and disheartening that 41 inmates who were involved in an accident were ferried in a small vehicle, a van for that matter, and especially that at a time where the president gave a pronouncement and a directive that no human beings, no people should be ferried in a van like it was with the inmates. It's so unfortunate because these are inmates and it's an abuse of their basic human rights. Our call to the officers and to the law enforcement agencies to make sure that the case that has been committed by the driver and whoever that authorized the ferrying of inmates in such a manner is investigated and that they are brought to book, because those per se and the way society perceives it is that they are treated in a certain way, and ferrying them like that is an abuse already. So our call is that it should be investigated to its conclusion, and that the people that are involved, those that are authorized and the driver, are brought to book, so that to see to it that they are also protected.
One prisoner among those who survived in a recent road traffic accident in Mpongwe is reported to have died at Ndola Teaching Hospital. The latest death brings the number of inmates who have died from injuries sustained in the accident that happened on Saturday near Chilubili area to 2. Republican President Edgar Lungu has been urged to revise electricity tariffs that have been increased by about 200% and 49% respectively to help ZESCO, the supplier, operate efficiently and viably. The opposition National Democratic Congress President Chimba Kambwili says the cost of electricity is unbearable for an ordinary Zambian to afford, thus the need for the government to reduce the rate at which they increased electricity tariffs. Dr. Kambwili says the people of Zambia are now feeling the impact of the increased tariffs owing to the load shedding the country is experiencing. He has expressed fear that once the load shedding ends, the high prices of electricity tariffs will bring demonstrations. Dr. Kambwili has further expressed worry that a lot of things will go up, stressing that Zambia is already facing considerable uncertainty owing to the poor performance of the economy.
Listen very carefully. 1,000 kwacha used to give me 896 units for my house. 2 days ago, I bought the same units of 1,000. They gave me 431 units. 431 units. Now, those who were buying the units at 100 kwacha, what do they give them? Those who were buying units at 200, what do they give them? If 1,000 kwacha can give you 431 units from 896, and not only that, all the commodities are going to go up by 200%. Please reconvene your cabinet, Your Excellency, and look at the 200 increase. Reduce it to at least 50% and do it gradually every year until you meet the cost reflective tariffs that you want. You can't increase things at 200% at a go. Last year you increased by 100% and you told us now the tariffs are cost reflective. Again, you have increased by 200. And I can tell you, the people of Zambia are not feeling it now because there is load shedding. Under load shedding, if you buy units for 100 kwacha, it will take you even 2 weeks. Because what is happening is electricity goes at 05 and comes back at 22 hours. 22 hours, people are sleeping, they are not using electricity. Now, when the load shedding is sorted out, that's when the people will feel the pinch. Nampapata, reduce the rate at which you have increased the electricity.
Inspector General of Police Kakuma Kanganja has warned against any disorderly conduct before, during and after the February 13th Chilobi parliamentary and 5-ward by-elections. Mr. Kanganja is appealing to all leaders of political parties taking part in the by-elections to advise their supporters to conduct their political activities in a peaceful manner. He has disclosed that enough police officers will be deployed to provide security and ensure that law and order prevails. Mr. Kanganja says police officers will also conduct random searches on persons and motor vehicles for offensive weapons such as guns during the said election period. He says members of the public are therefore advised to cooperate with police officers.
As Zambia Police Service, we shall be firm on the ground and shall not tolerate any disordered conduct before, during, and after the elections. My appeal, therefore, is for all leaders of political parties taking part in these elections to advise their supporters to conduct their political activities in a peaceful manner. Enough police officers will be deployed so as to provide security and ensure that law and order prevails. Police will also conduct random searches on persons and motor vehicles for offensive weapons, which include guns. Therefore, all members of the public are advised to cooperate with the police officers. All those that will take part in political activities are warned against arming themselves with guns and other offensive weapons, as this is against the law. Anyone found wanting will be dealt with accordingly. Further, I urge all political players to submit their campaign schedules to respective regulating officers so as to enable them to plan adequately. In this same vein, political players are advised to conduct their activities according to the campaign schedules to avoid clashing.
The Civil Society for Poverty Reduction, CSPR, has called on Agriculture Minister Michael Katambo to address the issues of farming in distribution in the 2019-2020 farming season, following reports suggesting that some farmers have not yet received farming inputs. CSPR Programs Coordinator Eddie Musosa is shocked that some farmers up to now have not yet received their inputs. Ms. Musosa says there is no need for the minister to continue living in denial that all is well in the agricultural sector. He is worried that the country is still facing challenges in the implementation of Farmer Support Program. Ms. Musosa tells Q News that though they appreciate government for starting the distribution of farming inputs early, he is however concerned that some farmers up to now have not yet received their inputs.
And I think the Ministry of Agriculture must move in to respond to those concerns and not living in denial to say no, just saying we've distributed, because for them they can release those inputs, but are the inputs getting to the actual farmers? And we have seen some of those weaknesses in the system. So whereas we commend government for ensuring that they kicked off the distribution in good time in this current season, but we're also concerned with those areas, with the farmers who up to now have not received their inputs because the rain is in full mode. And also we are concerned, especially in the southern parts of the country where the rainfall has not been adequate. What is the package really for those farmers in those areas? So moving forward, our recommendation is that government must put in a clear strategy on how they're going to scale up the electronic voucher system, because we feel as CSPR is the most effective way of distributing inputs to farmers. The only issues we need to address, the teething challenges, the financial issues which prevented such a very good program from being implemented effectively.
All People's Congress Party leader Nasser Musoni has called on government to consider reintroducing maize subsidies as a means of helping reduce the high mealie meal prices in the country. Government in 2013 removed maize subsidies on the pretext that there had been a pillar for the huge economic inequality in the country's agricultural sector, as they only benefited the already well-to-do middlemen and not the targeted vulnerable groups in the society. But Ms. Samsoni says the continued inconsistency in the policies surrounding the export of maize has contributed to the high mealie meal prices, hence the need for the government to consider reintroducing subsidies. He feels that it is wrong for millers and grain traders to be blamed for the high mealie meal prices, as they also are trying to beat the difficult economic situation in the country.
And we think that the government cannot run away from responsibility. What is causing these high prices is because the government is crafting ad hoc policies, short-changing policies on the export of maize. So the lack of consistency on policy is mainly the cause that when you want your friends to export the mini meal, the maize, you give them export licenses to export the maize grains. And the net result is that the poor people are paying a heavy price because of such dangerous policy inconsistencies. And it is wrong for government to be blaming the other players, the millers, or indeed the grain dealers. Okay, because everybody has to be cost effective. They too, like everybody else, have an obligation to beat economic extinction. So it is up to government to bring back subsidies, because clearly it doesn't work. The removal of subsidies has not helped the ordinary people, the ordinary citizens. The prices of mini meal remains very high for the majority of our people, and government has an obligation to ensure that our people are able to access cheaper mini meal. So playing to the gallery and using force or compelling those other players, it will not do.
The Young Women in Action, YWA, has noted with sadness that no woman has so far been nominated in the Chilubi parliamentary by-elections. YWA National Coordinator Harriet Chibuta says that this shows that the gender gap is only going to increase because there are already a few women in leadership positions. She adds that women representation in the country is extremely low, with less than 19% at parliamentary level, while at local government level, the women representation stands at less than 8%. Ms. Chibuta has further advised leaders and the community at large to learn to impress women in leadership positions.
So the position of Young Women in Action on the ongoing by-election nominations in Chilubi Island is that it is sad that no woman has been nominated so far. I think it's not new to us, to everybody in the country, that women representation is extremely low. At Member of Parliament level, countrywide, women stand at less than 19%, and at local government level, we stand at less than 8%. So with the oncoming tragedies such as death and women are not being nominated into office for the same or for the positions, it really saddens Young Women in Action, because it really shows that the gender gap is only going to increase. So
the opposition movement for Multi-Party Democracy, MMD spokesperson Dr. Caiphas Mukuka has questioned Raphael Nakachinda's capacity to call for a convention when he is not a member of the party. Mr. Nakachinda has continuously refused to agree with the High Court ruling that declared Nevas Mumba as MMD president, and has since been calling for a party convention. But Dr. Mukuka tells Q News that the MMD has never skipped national conventions, stressing that it has always adhered to the democratic norms and standards of the country. He has reaffirmed that the party president, Dr. Nevas Mumba, is committed to ensuring that the party holds its national convention, but only once it mobilizes the party. He has called on party members to ignore former spokesperson Raphael Nakachinda's call to go for a convention and concentrate on mobilizing the party ahead of the 2021 elections.
And the second statement he issued was that after that, he was further going to take the party to hold the national convention. At that time, that's when people's mandates, including Dr. Mumba's mandate, is supposed to be renewed by the delegates to the said convention. So for now, I'm just appealing to all our members across the country not to panic, to just ignore Raphael Nakachinda as they have done in the past. Because for now, what is crystal clear in as far as the party is concerned is as follows. The massive mobilization of the party has continued. We have been working underground quietly, visiting the wards, constituencies, districts, and provinces. Then when we are done with that, that's when we shall now announce a date for the national convention. So for now, there's no need to panic. For Nakachinda, I think he's not our member. What he should do for now is just to concentrate on whatever business he wants to do in politics, that he should leave our party in peace.
Ministry of Health has launched a door-to-door polio immunization campaign in Kalabo district of Western Province. This follows a confirmed case involving a 32-month-old male child who was admitted in the district's Yuka Mission Hospital after suffering from the disease. Kalabo District Health Director Patson Mukubesa says the child's polio status was confirmed by the World Health Organization (WHO) in Angola before its family moved into Zambia to seek his medical attention. Dr. Mukubesa disclosed during a District Development Coordination Committee DDCC meeting that the child's admission in Yuka Hospital has necessitated the polio immunization campaign. He states that the spread of and efforts to eradicate the disease is, however, an international health concern. The polio immunization campaign, which runs between 14th to 29th January 2020, targets to immunize 23,000 children under the age of 5 years. The initial symptoms of polio, which presently has no cure, include a fever, fatigue, headache, vomiting, stiffness in the neck, and painful limbs. And finally, in our news, the Lusaka City Council, LCC, through Public Health Department, has continued with the disinfection of houses which were flooded by stormwater last week in the eastern part of the city. A number of houses in Kaunda Square, Salama Park, and Mtendere East got flooded last week following a heavy downpour in the area. LCC Public Relations Manager George Sichimba says the council embarked on the disinfection exercise because the stormwater is suspected to be contaminated. Mr. Sichimba explains that the team of public health inspectors is targeting both the rooms and surroundings of affected properties. He has since advised all residents of the city to be boiling or chlorinating water for drinking in the wake of a recent press statement issued by Water Resources Management Authority, WAMA.
You may recall that a number of houses in Kaunda Square, Salama Park, and Mtendere East got flooded. And so experts, public health experts, believe that the stormwater could have been contaminated, and so it's important that disinfection takes place, and the target is the houses themselves, the rooms, and as well as the surroundings and other properties that were flooded. And in the same vein, Lusaka City Council wishes to advise residents to be boiling or chlorinating water for drinking and the use for other household or domestic use, such as washing plates. This advice comes in the wake of WAMA issuing a statement that due to floods being experienced in some parts of the country, there could be contamination of water, and so it's important that members of the public adhere to the advice that is being channeled by authorities.
On that note, we end the news. Thank you for watching. Bye-bye and God bless.